Okay, Indian poetry. I'm going to look at a few examples and then let you um, explain one of the poems that you think you understand. Um, the first of the selections was classical Sanskrit lyric poetry. Um, Page 1059. And I'm just going to do a couple of these to kind of try to give you an example. I haven't been the cloud that brings a rain of riches to fields parched by lack of money. The metaphor, of course, is a cloud that brings rain to a dry land, but of course, the reference in the last line to money. I haven't brought wealth to my family, haven't made a lot of money uh, to to help my family get by. I haven't been the powerful storm that devastates a mountain range of enemies. I haven't brought power to my family. I haven't even been the bee that buzzes around the lotus faces of sweet eyed young women. Haven't even brought my mother a daughter in law and grandchildren. I've only been the axe that cut my mother's youth in two. Having children changes your life forever. And that's all he's done. Uh, Once you become a parent, you're a parent for the rest of your life, even when your kids are grown. You have responsibilities, and it changes the way you think about things. Um, Skipping down that same page, when I knew little. When I knew little, I was like an elephant, blind in rut. The rutting season is the mating season, and elephants, particularly male elephants, during the mating season, become extremely aggressive. They'll charge just about anything. I know everything, I said, and proudly thought my mind was omniscient. But when I kept the company of wise people, little by little, I learned that I'm a fool, and the madness left me like a fever. To me, this is about the transition from being a teenager to being an adult. Um, Teenagers tend to think they know everything. When I was 5 years old, my dad knew everything. When I was 15, my dad knew nothing. When I was 25, my dad knew some things. Not everything, but some things. Now, was it really my dad who changed? Or was it me? There's what we know, or at least think we know. And there's what we know that we don't know. But there's something else in the world, and that is what we don't know that we don't know. And usually that's larger than what we realize. What do we call second year students in high school and in college? You know where the word sophomore comes from? From two Greek words. Sophos, which is wise. Sophia means wisdom. And moros, which is the Greek word for fool, is where we get our word moron. Okay? So a sophomore literally is a wise fool. Now, why do we call second year students wise fools? Well, they've got 1 year under their belt, so they've learned a few things. But have you ever heard the proverb that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing? You know what makes a little knowledge dangerous? Is that there's a temptation to think that you know more than what you really do. And as he matures, he realizes that there's a lot more that he doesn't know. And so he's a little less arrogant, a little less sure that he knows everything. Page 1060, a human being. A human being is allotted a span of 100 years. That's actually a long life, especially in pre-modern era. Half of it passes at night. Half of the other half is consumed by childhood and old age. So much of our life is spent either asleep or as a little kid or an old person who neither one really can do much. The rest is spent in serving others with illness, separation, grief for companions. What's happiness then for living things in a life that's like the bubbles in the froth on ocean's waves? This is a very Hindu poem about the emptiness of life in this world. In Hinduism, and also in the other Indian religions, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, there is this attitude that it is really not possible to find satisfaction in this life, in this world. The only way we can really find satisfaction is in obtaining what they call moksha, liberation from the cycle of reincarnation and suffering, of being born and reborn and reborn. Um, Happiness is found beyond this world, in liberation to nirvana, which is kind of like the concept of heaven, in that it's complete happiness, not touched by any sadness or sorrow. But there's one important difference. Christians and Muslims, when they think of people going to heaven, you retain your individual identity, and they expect to be able to recognize other individuals. Um, in Hinduism, not so. Um, there is there is bliss, but there is no me experiencing that bliss. The idea of the self in Indian thought is an illusion, a mistake, and actually to reach nirvana, we have to get beyond that idea that we are really separate selves. In Hinduism, the belief is that the inner self or soul, the Atman is their word, uh, of every living being, not just every human, every living being is a part of like a world soul that they call Brahman. Um, in essence, uh, um, our soul is a part of God, and liberation, their word is moksha, comes when we recognize that we're not really separate selves. Only then can our true inner self be reunited with Brahman from whence it came. And that's what nirvana is. It is release or absorption into Brahman. At least that's the Hindu understanding of it. The analogy that I use is a drop of water caught off the wave of the Gulf in a hurricane, and the wind flings that droplet up in the air and swirls it around, and eventually that droplet falls back into the Gulf. Now, once it does that, can you ever find that same drop again? The answer is no, because it mixes in with all the other water. It was only that separate drop when it was up in the sky being caught up in the wind. We're only a separate self in this world. Once we achieve this release from this world, the the Atman is absorbed into Brahman, and we no longer exist as separate beings. But then we're really not separate beings anyway. That's just an illusion, a dream. Now, what's on pages 1062 and following, we have a rarity. Um, we don't get a lot of material written by women coming out of the ancient world. Um, women generally were not didn't go to school, didn't learn to read and write. They learned to cook and sew. Now, ladies, don't throw things at me. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's the way it was. Okay. Um, so I want to look at these because I think they're very interesting, as well as interesting poems in themselves. Top of page 62, number 572. Um, as he came to bed, the knot fell open of itself, the dress that held only somehow to my hips by the strands of the loosened girdle. Now, girdle here is not an undergarment. It is it's a belt. It's actually what the word originally meant. You know, the dress somehow fell open. So much I know, my dear, but when within his arms, I can't remember who he was, or who I was, or what we did, or how. She loses herself in this lover. Now, I have to also point out to you that um, in traditional societies like India, even today, most marriages are arranged. You don't get married because you meet somebody and fall in love. Um, marriages are arranged, and you hope you fall in love with them. In fact, it's not unusual for a couple to meet for the first time at their wedding. The second poem by, by Bhavaka Devi. At first, our bodies knew a perfect oneness, but then grew two, with you as lover and I, unhappy I, the loved. And so already uh, there's the sense that something's gone wrong here. They started out with a perfect oneness, but have somehow grown apart. And you know, do we normally associate being loved with being unhappy? Um, don't we normally think the other way around, that being loved brings happiness? Now you are husband, I the wife. What's left except of this my life, too hard to break, to reap the bitter fruit, your broken faith? What caused the disruption in the relationship? Your broken faith. It's his infidelity. He cheated on her. Guys, the ladies don't like that. Any more than you would like them cheating on you. Now, the last of these on page 1063, um, in the interest of fairness, number 807, good neighbor wife. So the context here is a woman talking to her next door neighbor. I beg you, keep your eye upon my house a moment. Okay. You know, would you mind watching my house for me? The baby's father hates to drink the tasteless water from the well. Now, immediately, again, I'm already getting a sense that there's a problem here because she refers to um, the baby's father. Now, in traditional societies like India, um, you don't go having a baby without being married. Okay, not acceptable. In fact, I've got a a video um, in the optional videos about what the fact that a woman's own family um, may kill her for doing that. Um, so the baby's father would be her husband. So the fact that she refers to him as the baby's father instead of my husband tells me that the relationship is not good. Better I go then, though alone, to the river bank, dark with tomella trees and thick with canes, which with their sharp and broken stems may scratch my breast. What would have to happen? What would she have to do down at the river bank for the canes to scratch her breast? Um, I mean, would they do that if she were wearing her clothes? what's really going on. Um, she's sneaking off to the river to meet a side dude, and because she's unhappy in her marriage and is kind of covering her tracks. Um, to try to avoid having people talk about her. Yeah, the other selection I wanted you to read in Indian poetry is in Volume C, Indian Poetry After Islam, and it's a type of poetry called Bhakti poetry. Bhakti in Hinduism refers to devotion uh, to a god or goddess. It's a and that took on special prominence after Islam came to India. Um, Islam stressing devotion to Allah, God, and part of the Hindu response was to emphasize more religious devotion to the Hindu gods. Um, Page 79 in Volume C, poem number 21. Father, in my ignorance, you brought me through mothers' wombs, through unlikely worlds. And notice the plural, more than one mother's womb. Um, in Hinduism, the idea is that we experience reincarnation over and over again, go through multiple lifetimes. And in fact, that's really the central problem in all the Indian religions is how do I escape from rebirth? Because satisfaction is really not possible as long as we're trapped in this cycle of rebirth and suffering. Was it wrong just to be born, O Lord? Have mercy on me for being born once before. I give you my word, Lord of the Meeting Rivers, Shiva, never to be born again. I'm going to achieve enlightenment so that I can escape from this cycle of reincarnation. Um, Page 80, poem number 97. The master of the house is at home. Is he at home or isn't he? The master of the house is the true self, the Atman. Grass on the threshold, the doorstep, dirt in the house, the master of the house. Is he at home or isn't he? Lies in the body, lust in the heart. And lust is not just sexual desire, it is desire for any of the things of this world. You can lust for money, you can lust for power. In fact, one of the Buddhist scriptures, the Dhammapada, um, says there's no satisfying lusts, even if it rained gold. No, the master of the house is not at home, our Lord of the Meeting Rivers. Unless we take charge of our lives, purify ourselves, free ourselves from attachment to all of the things that this world has to offer, there is no spiritual progress. Last one, page 81, number 494. I don't know anything like time beats and meter, nor the arithmetic of strings and drums. I don't know the count of iamb and dactyl. Um, these are all terms of poetry and music. I don't know. I don't know the rituals. I don't know the formal chants that are a part of Hindu religion. My Lord of the Meeting Rivers, as nothing will hurt you, I sing as I love. What matters is not the ritual, but um, heartfelt devotion. Um, that's what bhakti is about.